Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. I haven't seen that many people make videos about passing OSCEs online, and I think that's because a lot of people do. Well, I'm guessing if you are watching this video, you're either my friend who I sent this video, and shout out to you, yeah, or you're someone who's just not done well on an OSCE and is looking for some extra tips and advice. Well, welcome. You're at the right place. Let's get a few things out of the way first. So this video is not a study technique video. This video is assuming that you have a study technique that you have and works for you, and it's just going to be adding onto that to sort of explain extra things you could add on to your studying to make sure that you're acing the OSCEs very well. Second of that, I am not an expert in study techniques. Honestly, I would recommend you follow these guys who I will put here. These are the experts that people I personally watch and personally use on YouTube, so please check those people out. So just give you a bit of a background, I usually do very well in my OSCEs, but this year was a bit different. And my first mock exam, but they're not really mock because they contributed to our final grade, but I found out that I did below average, and that was sort of quite eye-opening. It made me really think a little bit about why I did that way. But I spoke with friends, I spoke with mentors, I spoke with people who examine our OSCEs, and I've put everything together neatly into this beautiful video so that you guys know what to expect and you guys do not make the same mistakes I did. So the first thing with any exam, not just an OSCE, is understanding what your examiner wants from you. Okay, once you know what your examiner wants from you, you're going to be able to say, okay, this is what I need to do to get those marks. Exams are a game. You're playing with the examiner, you're trying to read their mind, know what they want so that they can give you the top marks, so they can be like, yeah, that's a top student right there, you know. So my mistake number one was I highly underestimated how much the bar had shifted from third year to fourth year. That was a mistake I learned quickly. I had to learn that quickly. An example I'll give is that usually in first, second, and third year, you're usually told a task to perform. So for example, they say this patient is coming, please conduct a gastrointestinal exam, or please do a hip exam, or please take a focus history about their chest pain. In fourth year, it's the wide freaking west. Like, you are given free rein over what you do. They just give you a prompt about what the patient has come in, similar to what your GPs get, and you as the doctor in this scenario are expected to see them, examine them, come up with a management plan, know what investigations you're going to do yet have an idea of what it is for management, and also know a couple other features about the condition that's presenting in front of you. This is a step above just reading and understanding. It requires an amalgamation of different subsets, and it requires you to have like a deep understanding of pathology, a deep understanding of how different conditions present themselves. Throughout the video, I'll be sharing tips on how I help link all of these things together. Just to repeat that again, understand what your examiner wants from you. Speak to other years, speak to your mentors, speak to your tutors, because more time these people they know. Don't expect to be an expert, because if you are, what you're doing in medical school, a lot of schools will give you the list of the conditions that they will do. This leads us nicely into our second tip. So remember, I talked a little bit about study techniques. You need to make sure, and for some people, they don't even need it. Some people are so good that they do their active recall generally and it's automatically translated to OSCEs. They're able to make those links. That's not me. And if you're watching this video, that's probably not you too. So I think one of the biggest things that changed was practicing thinking or speaking out loud while revising. So I'll put a little clip, or I'll put an overview video of what my Notion looks like. So this year I actually switched from Anki to Notion. I'll be making another video about whether I would do that again. For each condition, I have a toggle that tells me what the condition is, how it presents, risk factor, differentials, investigations, and how that what I would expect to see on an investigation, and management. So doing that helped me say, okay, other than Anki that's just like tapping and just saying, okay, what is, because my Ankis, I'll show you guys what my Ankis look like, and maybe, you know, we can share and discuss how we can get better. But basically, having all those different tabs, I would sort of start with the toggle of asking myself, okay, so for example, what is Crohn's disease? What are some other differentials for Crohn's disease that I need to think about? What investigations would I order for someone who I think has Crohn's disease? And what would I expect to see if they have Crohn's disease versus if they do not have Crohn's disease? Placements really help you putting this information together. More importantly, like I said in the beginning, practicing thinking and speaking out loud, because in OSCE you get nervous nervous. You get nervous and you tend to say all sorts of rubbish that you've never even said before. The good thing about this is that you can do it on your own, you can do it with friends. If you're an introvert, if you're someone who doesn't really like conversing with people, which if you do, I think you need to change that. Speaking of differentials, I always link things together. So if I think someone's got like a cardiology presentation or a heart issue, when asked about differentials, I always try to think about a resp differential. With musculoskeletal, I try to think of a neuro differential. If someone has a GI issue, I try to think about reproductive health. Always in pregnancy can present as all sorts of things. The broader you think, having those differentials is important for that. I tend to think in these large groups. I think someone in my class told me something that was quite useful. Always try to think, what's the most likely condition? What would I want to rule out? What is the most dangerous thing this could be, and what could it be? Even if the patient has textbook Crohn's, you need to show that you're thinking widely. And this is another thing talking out loud makes me practice talking loudly and speaking loudly during the revision, structuring your answers as well. My third tip, taking notes during the history exam, because this is kind of like an advanced OSCE. My medical school for sure, first, second and third year, I don't think we were allowed to have paper and pens in the exam. Outline the history, so I'd write out the presenting complete, history of presenting complete, like everything. This is how I structure my answers to, because the two questions you're sure guaranteed to be asked is how would you investigate and how would you manage this patient, and say my management. And the good thing about this method that I've personally found that is that it helps me when it comes to the end, when I'm supposed to summarize. Because I've written things down, I tend to not forget as usually as I would if I did not. And it also helps me like remember sort of differentials and things in case I forgot, because sometimes with nerves, like anything can happen, guys. Anything can literally happen. The key thing is to make sure to write the key positives and not the negatives as well, because that's another thing I did. Like I would just put a tick next to like my core presentations, and then when I'll summarize, I'd mention those and any relevant past medical history, past drug history. There is a caveat with this though. So out of my 8 mocks, 1 of them had feedback that they felt that at some points writing took away from the consultation. So it's a very thin line to walk. I'd say the main thing if you're writing during consultation, and if you find that it helps you remember, is to make sure you're writing and maintaining eye contact. Don't write essays, like just write quick bullet points. The 4th one links very, very closely with point number 2, which is yap. Make sure you're yapping, but in a structured manner. In my first OSCE, the one that I did below average in, I remember being asked what I thought the top differential for that case was, and I just said the first thing, which is the most likely thing. And the examiner was like, okay, and then went to ask me the rest of the questions. Whereas I think now on looking back, I should have potentially talked a bit more about other differentials. Like even though they asked what is your top differential, like even though they asked that, it's quite useful to, I say, think out loud and communicate that thinking out loud. I say, this is my top differential because this is not my top differential because this isn't this. As someone who is a yapper to my friends, but not much of a yapper in like exam scenarios, this was a big one for me. And this is where, like I said earlier, practicing talking in exam allows you to practice yapping and be able to yap. So just to give you guys an example, if they ask me, okay, so how would you investigate this patient? A popular way of structuring things using geeky medics and in my medical school is bedside bloods and imaging, and say, okay, from the bedside point of things, this is what I'll do. Bloods, this is what I'll do. And for imaging tests, if necessary, this is what I would do. For managing, there's usually non-medical and medical. Some say conservative medical, surgical. Examiners like that. And honestly, how well your examiner perceives you to be, it goes a long way, because remember, these people are like, only God knows how many hours they spend. They're not paying attention to every single thing you do, which is not an excuse to go do rubbish and expect good marks, but it's sort of like an argument for why you should present your thoughts and present the way you speak in a structured manner. I'm going to briefly touch on, just give you guys example of when or how I would, my eye. Okay, so let's say you were asked in an OSCE exam. So for example, you have a patient presenting with a painful big toe. They drink alcohol, they're on thiazide diuretics, and they describe the pain as coming on suddenly and relieving itself within a day or 2 before stopping. So this is the case. You've taken the history, you've done the exam, and they've asked you, what are your differentials, or what is your top differential? My main differential in this case would be gout because of the risk factors. So I'd say what the risk factors are. Septic arthritis is something I would want to exclude, though I think it's less likely in this case because of this patient's fever, like lack of fever or lack of systemic symptoms. It also could be pseudogout, or it could be cellulitis, or something else but you know, on examination I did not see X, Y, and Z. So that is sort of how I would communicate it, and that's how I always have done. If you have other ways of sort of talking through things in exam, please put in the comment section so that we can all learn. Point number 5 would be practice with your friends, your ops, practice on the wards, practice with doctors, practice. Honestly, practice with a teddy bear, like practice with your blankets, practice with anything and anyone you can find. Like at this point, it's really important you do so, because like I said, it's all about having that structure, being able to know the motions, being able to flow, being able to go from one step to the next. Practicing helps consolidate everything, and honestly, I think I learned the most when I'm with friends. Shout out to my friends. Shout out to my friends. I learn the most with them, even if it's on Zoom. It's just the best way to learn, and it's fun. Like, you know, everything is just more fun with your friends. I was struggling with finding people to practice. For me, for example, I was far away from a lot of my friends this year because I was on a placement in rural United Kingdom. Yeah, let's not talk about that. I was away from all my friends, but I found some really nice doctors who would practice with me sometimes. And I also practiced with my teddy bear. I practiced with the bear. I practiced with the third years in my flat, who were really, really lovely. So yeah, it was all like practice. So that's all my 5 tips done now. I'm going to add a bonus, and that I already kind of mentioned, but it's being confident. Act like you know what you're talking about, because you do. You've done the work, you've practiced out loud, you have got a structure to mentioning your investigations, you've got a structure to your differentials, you've got a structure to your management. Be confident, you know, and the patient will trust you, the examiner trusts you. All of this only comes once you've inculcated all the tips I mentioned above. So yeah, I really hope this video was helpful to some of you, and hopefully it means all of us can, you know, keep scoring top scores in our exam. If anyone has any tips I haven't mentioned, feel free to put it down in the comments below. And if there's any more videos you want to see from me, tell me. I'm an open book. I've been away from YouTube, so thank you guys for sticking around and not forgetting me. I've got loads of video ideas back to back, guys. Now I've got a little bit more time. We finished our exams, so I'll be focusing on my YouTube, which I've kind of, I mean, all my social media. I'm yapping now. Okay, well, if you're here, you're a real one. But basically, all my social media, guys, like I had to stop because of exams. First, I had to take. I don't regret doing that. But now I'm back here better than ever, and I want to continue this because I love YouTube. I love filming. I love editing. I love talking to the camera. So anyway, that's enough yapping from me. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Please let me know in the comments what your favorite bit was. Consider liking and subscribing if you did, and I'll hopefully see you guys in the next one. Bye.